These sessions are based on the book The Messiah Codes Unsealed.
Hello, this is Luis. Welcome to the Messiah Codes. Today we're going to study session 19, is the Festival of Unleavened Bread, part 1. In this session we will study the fourth code, which is concealed in the Festival of Unleavened Bread. We're reading Leviticus 23, 6 through 8. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. That is a Shabbaton, right? But you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord for 7 days. The seventh day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. So the first day and the last day of the Festival of Unleavened Bread are Shabbatons. Our current model establishes that each one of God's mandated festivals has a chronological and a specific meaning mapping the first and second coming of the Messiah. The seventh-day Festival of Unleavened Bread is very significant, yet we have a limited but important information about its meaning and its relation to the first coming of the Messiah. Just like the chronological sequence of the festivals accurately reflects the sequence of events in the life of Jesus and the church, their length adds relevant information that gives context and helps the development of the model. The Exodus began the morning of Nisan 14 in haste, as we read in Exodus 12:34 and 39. Just hours after Pharaoh and the Egyptians went through the 10th and last plague, the death of Egypt's firstborn, Pharaoh summoned Moses that very night, telling him, "Rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said." Exodus 12:29-32 is the whole story. The first feast of unleavened bread was celebrated the next day. Remember that the Lord commanded Israel to eat unleavened bread also during Passover. So we have the 1 day of the festival of Passover when you eat unleavened bread, and the 7 days of the festival of unleavened bread when you also eat unleavened bread. Those are the 8 days of the days of unleavened bread. As we read in Exodus 12:18, in the first month on the 14th day of the month at evening on Passover, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening, which is the last day of the Festival of Unleavened Bread. So don't confuse the Festival of Unleavened Bread with the days of unleavened bread. The Passover, Nisan 14, is also called the Preparation Day. Preparation for what? During Passover, you prepare your house for the Festival of Unleavened Bread, which is again Nisan 15-21, by taking out any and all leaven you had in your house, because during those 7 days, no leaven must be found in your house, as we read in Exodus 12:19. For 7 days, no leaven shall be found in your houses. Some people get confused because other people, not God, changed the names of festivals from the name God gave them. Also, some people take one or a group of verses and make conclusions ignoring or not reading other verses. For instance, in the times of Jesus, and even now, even today, Jews call the festival of unleavened bread also Passover, as we read in Luke 22:1. Now, the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called Passover. Notice that Luke didn't say that it is Passover, but that it's called Passover. Changing the name God gave the festivals brings confusion. During the celebration of the first festival of unleavened bread, after the Passover, Israel got freedom from physical slavery. On the Feast of Unleavened Bread, after the death of Jesus, all humanity got freedom from the slavery caused by sin. That's true freedom. But just like any gift, it has to be accepted and taken before it can be enjoyed. What is so important about leaven and what does it represent? We get our answer in 1 Corinthians 5, 6 through 8, where we read, "Your glorying is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Therefore, purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, since you truly are unleavened. For indeed Christ, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So leaven represents sin. The Lord died and was buried at the end of Passover, Nisan 14. We understand that the elimination of sin resulted from his sacrifice, now represented by the absence of leaven in the bread eaten that night by those celebrating the Passover, and then for the 7 days of the Festival of Unleavened Bread. We observe the reference of the Lord's death representing the elimination of sin in the image of the unleavened bread, but there's a lot more to this story. So what happened on day 1 through 3 when Jesus was buried in the tomb? The Lord Jesus was buried, and his body spent 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb, as he prophesied in Matthew 12:38-40, where he says, Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answering, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And in Mark 8:31, when Jesus said, and he, Jesus, began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Regarding these 3 days and nights, Paul writes the following in Ephesians 4:7-9. But to each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore, he says, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. Now this, he ascended. What does it mean but that he also first descended into the lower parts of the earth? He who descended is also the one who ascended far above all heavens, that he might fill all things. So before ascending to the Father, Jesus descended to the lower parts of the earth. Now, remember, the ascension to the Father is different than what he told the thief, that he was going to be in paradise that night. Paradise and heaven are two different places. So he went to paradise, but he hadn't ascended to the Father yet. So after that, he descended to the lower parts of the earth, as we read in 1 Peter 3:18-20. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit, by whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison, who formerly were disobedient, when once the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 souls, were saved through water. So who are those imprisoned spirits that existed during the days of Noah? Why are they so notorious that the Lord made sure that we all know about them, and he's busy to let them know his victory on the cross? We read in 2 Peter 2:4-5, for if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly. The word used for hell in that passage is Tartaru. According to Strong's Concordance, it is the name of the subterranean region, doleful and dark, regarded by the ancient Greeks as the abode of the wicked dead, where they suffer punishment for their evil deeds. That certainly qualifies as a prison in hell. What act of disobedience did these angels commit to deserve such punishment? Jude explains in chapter 1, verse 6. And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. How did these angels not keep their proper domain? We read in Genesis 6, 1 and 2. Now, it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. Mating between the sons of God, these angels, and the daughters of man engendered chimeras, the Nephilim. That is, if allowed to continue to mix, would have contaminated Jesus' lineage. That would have caused a problem with the plan of redemption by tainting Jesus' bloodline. That is why we read in Genesis 6:9, Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. So Noah's generations were not yet contaminated with the fallen angel's blood. We read in Romans 5:18, therefore, as through one man's offense judgment came to all men, resulting in condemnation, even so through one man's righteous act the free gifts came to all men, resulting in justification of life. So if those fallen angels were allowed to continue to live and taint Jesus' lineage, there would not have been an uncontaminated bloodline for Messiah, for these men, these righteous men, to come from and satisfy that requirement. In the next session, we will continue with the code of the Festival of Unleavened Bread. This will be part 2. We're going to talk, this is going to be about the resurrection and Jesus' ascension to the Father, which is the moment when Jesus was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. Daniel 7:14. See you in the next session.